So somebody was sitting in my living room chopping a purple onion. When I tell you I was moved to tears, such an inspirational, touching, fascinating story of a real, true life hero. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss Devotion. Now this movie is from 2022 and it stars Jonathan Majors. Now before we get into all things Jesse Brown, I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, then we're going to come back and discuss. Child, we have got to discuss Jonathan Majors. I so wish this scandal was not going down right now at this moment, because Lord, man, he can act. Please don't ruin this for us.
Go back.
Now that you guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me, let's get into this movie. But before we jump into the video, I have to give a shout out to the person who paid for and requested this film. So if you happen to get your whole first black aviator life, it's not because of me, it's because of this person right here. Thank you so much for supporting me and paying for this content. Now, getting into this movie is of course based on a book, but the film was directed by J.D. Dillard. He is a very young up-and-coming black director. He has also directed Sweetheart and Slate. And I also felt like he had a really personal connection to this film that probably helped it along, being that he himself was a Navy kid and his father was the second black officer to fly for the Blue Angels. Now, I personally didn't pay a whole lot of attention to this movie when it came out. Not that I wasn't checking for it, it's just that the trailer just didn't do a whole lot to pull me in. But I also did not expect for this movie to be a box office bomb. There were several things at the time that I felt like just didn't work in this movie's favor. We already had another aviator movie come out and do numbers in the same year. Top Gun Maverick came out and was received really well, leading people to not really gravitate towards this film, assuming that it was just a mere imitation, especially with both films also co-starring Glen Powell. And then you also have this perception of what a war movie is supposed to be. I think a lot of people anticipated this being a Korean War film. You know, we don't have a ton of films based around the Korean War, and they were expecting, you know, lots of spectacle, explosions, death, a little bit more action-packed. And this film is just absolutely low-key the opposite of that. We don't so much dive into the war, its true meaning, the casualties. This movie is solely based around Jesse Brown and his relationships, and that's whether we are getting into his loving relationship with his wife and daughter, or the constantly budding, growing friendship that he has with Lieutenant Tom Hudner. This movie is absolutely getting into the title. It's all about devotion, not just devotion to the craft and being an aviator and flying, but devotion to, you know, your wife, your partner, people that you have to fly with. How devoted are you, and how far are you willing to go for someone? And how far are you willing to go for your craft, just to even be in the position that you were in, to be the first black aviator, all while being a target, discriminated against, an outsider, all while feeling the constant pressure to be exceptional, because you had to be that all along just to face adversities and get to where you are anyway. Now, as a viewer and just in general, this was my first introduction to Jesse Brown at all. I had never actually heard of him, which is absolutely a tragedy. But what an introduction that this was. After getting into his character, reading up on his life, I was absolutely shocked to see that somebody who pulled themselves up, you know, from pretty much nothing and became something, all the adversities and just things that he had faced in his life, the wife, just to only be 24 years old when he actually passed away. It just amazed me because he had accomplished so much, being an outstanding student all of his life, an even better athlete, paying for himself to get through Ohio State, being one of the first and few Black students to attend there and graduate from there, all while still having the frame of mind to be an aviator, never giving up even after he was denied, just trying to take the entrance exam many times solely based off of his race. Now, do we get all of that in the movie? Do we start from his childhood? Absolutely not. But through the really great acting and the writing here, you feel it with every single step that Jesse takes in this movie, especially when we get into him as a whole, as a character. I love how harsh he is in a way and how unconventional he is. He isn't friendly, he isn't welcoming, more of a loner who's not extremely talkative or trusting, especially when it comes to our newly assigned Tom. And rightfully so. So many times, especially when we get into historical characters, we will try to switch up their personality traits through the writing, try to make them feel a little bit more likable and compromising. Absolutely not here. Even though it's subtle and we don't get into those flashbacks because we don't need them, we feel the way that he has been treated his entire life and all of the adversities that he has faced through his body language, the mannerisms, his tone of voice, tested time and time again, unlike his white counterparts, just to become a Navy aviator. Being first meant that he couldn't just meet the standard, he needed to be the standard, be exceptional, only to be taunted and mumbled about and attacked behind his back and still considered to be less than. Anytime that we have Jesse reflect on any of the treatment that he received during school, the academy, training, current things that are happening on the base, you just feel it so much. You identify with this character and you want him to win so badly. You don't feel this harder than when Jonathan Majors is delivering this Oscar-worthy performance in the mirror, where he is shouting all of these racial, degrading slurs and terms at himself to motivate him before every single mission. When I tell you I was so moved, but I was just so stuck and entranced at the performance at the same time, even for someone as young as Jesse to feel that way, to use that, those slurs, those terms to motivate himself, you just think about how many times in his life that he had to, build up a tolerance for that, to hear that in order to be able to use that as fuel to even motivate him in the first place. Getting into Jonathan Majors, when I say don't mess this up for us, it is absolutely an understatement. The first time I ever got to see Jonathan Majors was in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and I was like, who is that back there? He is so special. As a person who loves movies, loves a good moving performance, emoting, really pushing through, giving me that old Hollywood, Jonathan Majors does that for me. He did it for me here. He absolutely did it in Lovecraft Country. Things were solidified after Lovecraft. I was like, man, he's such an old school powerhouse throwback of an actor. There's this strong yet gracefulness about him in the way that he carries himself with every single role. He takes on a new persona. He really takes the craft seriously, internalizing every single character. Almost low-key reminded me of what I love so much about Chadwick Boseman. I was so excited to see more from him. So to finally get here and just feel like he is about to pop off in a major way as an actor and be hit in the face with a scandal, you know what? I was chilling. I was chilling when we said we had, video evidence. We were going to release it from, the vehicle, the Uber, the taxi, whatever. We have yet to do that. I am not one to incriminate anybody before all evidence and all sides have been heard, but I'm hoping that this isn't what they are saying it is, because if it is, Jonathan, man, I was rooting for you. We all were rooting for you. How dare you? I really hope that is not the case, because He's freaking exceptional. Speaking of exceptional, the direction and the cinematography in this movie is really good also. I really love when we get into them actually flying the planes. Via the direction and certain angles, the way that we are riding the wave and the coast of these planes whenever they go up into the air, it really feels like you are in the driver's seat, and it really puts you in the position of Jesse. Even when we get into the war scene and we have our guys go into combat, it is really, really well done. The type of direction during those scenes really pull you into the movie because we have Jesse trying to test Tom's flying limits and just test his boundaries as a man and as a person via the plane. You see this the strongest when you get into the two soldiers who are in the Korean War, and you see this also with Jesse and Tom's dynamic. I have to push your boundaries. I have to read you as a person. In the air, you are all I have. All we have is each other. It's one thing to anticipate impact when you're across enemy lines, but it's an entirely different demon to anticipate the in my own squadron who would just solely let me die based off of my skin color and the hatred that they have for me as a person. I just really appreciated the fact that they don't become instantaneous friends. There is some buildup, there is some friction, especially considering the fact that they are both about to face this obstacle together. Jesse is an elite pilot. Jesse is going to showboat. He's a stunt. He has absolutely perfected it. But when we introduce the brand new VF-32 engine craft, it's unfamiliar territory and everybody is apprehensive. When we have Jesse be such a perfectionist on the current aircraft and then we introduce a new one and we have him be a little shaky, he has to go around and do the landing for a second time, or even when you have him boast up a fellow friend and pilot to do a testing for this same aircraft at which he offs himself upon impact, just simply trying to land the same plane. You really see how high the stakes are for Jesse as far as him returning and being safe, and how high the stakes are for Daisy and his family. Let's get into Daisy. The relationship that he has here with his wife Daisy is really important to this movie. So many dynamics have to work for this movie to work because it's not so action-packed. So we don't only need characters like Jonathan Majors to deliver. We have Glen Powell. He delivers a really great performance here. And we also have a new Christina Jackson, who, this was my first introduction to her. She delivers a great performance here as Jesse's equally devoted wife. Time and time again, we visually get to see what's at stake for him and this love and this passion that he has towards his wife, the respect that he has for her when he's away, the letters that he writes her constantly, the way he speaks of her when she isn't in his presence, that forethought to leave gifts behind when he's anticipating missing a birthday, the way they look at each other, embrace each other, the forethought for him to fly over their house constantly or fly over a beach that is sentimental to them, as to say, you know, I'm thinking of you, I love you, I'm going to return home. You want him to return home. You want their union to continue, even though you already know Jesse does not make it. That's good writing. Now, what I also appreciated about this movie was, in somebody else's hands, this could have easily turned into a white savior movie, some trope-led movies, but this movie, they went out of their way to make it anything but that, all the way to the point that we have Jesse saying repeatedly in the film, I don't need you to save me. Just getting to see that Tom isn't perfect and he is almost kind of blinded to his own privilege and the way that he is able to conduct himself as a pilot, versus when it comes to Jesse and that whole conversation of not always being able to abide by the rules and follow the standard, doing as you're told. If I would have done as I'm told as Jesse, I wouldn't be where I am today. how I'm treated every day when I walk around, the way that I was treated in flight school, the way that some people treat me on the street tells me otherwise. But you have Tom within the story wanting so much for him to be a little combative, fight back, speak up for yourself. You don't have to take it. And we really see the impact of those things and why he has been kind of keeping these things in, being a little passive, being the bigger person, because the repercussions of my white counterparts who I am defending myself against, they will not be the same. This will affect my entire flight career. When we have them go to Cannes, France, and we have him meet Elizabeth Taylor, child, I love the whole scene when they rolled up to the casino and he broke out in that French like, yeah, you tried it. You thought you had a friend. I am well versed and I am cultured. Yes, I know French. Open the door. Like, all of those things were great. Why are you here? Who are you? He is just disrespected. Why are you allowing this to happen? Why am I having to stick up for you? Aren't you mad? Why don't you fight back? When we have Jesse doing what Jesse does, disobeying an order, decreasing the warfare, but also disobeying orders. It was such a great scene. Jesse is so proud. You also have Tom being proud. Tom giving orders and having them follow them to a T not only protects Jesse, but it protects everybody else as well. And then when you get into a character like Jesse, this is how I secure my placement here, my future, when in actuality he was endangering his life to kind of low-key prove a point. He had internalized so much of having to be the best, having to prove himself, that he was willing to go that extra mile. Even though we were saving lives, we did not go by protocol. We have Tom who was just, I'm just writing a report, child. I am doing as I'm told. I'm following orders. Did not lift you up in the report, did not say you did an amazing job, but yes, you also put this one infraction here, though it may be a small thing to you. Me here as a black man, the only black man that's here, all I need is one thing. All I need is a couple missteps where you are allowed to show weakness, maybe display a few errors. I am not allowed that. All it takes is for one thing for them to shut me out, keep me out of a position, see me as a problem. The same way where I'm not reactive to every single scenario around me. Not only have I built up a tolerance, but what this means to you means so much more to me on a whole different level. I don't need you to save me. I don't need you to go back and try to renege on the statement. I just need you to support me as a man, a black man, and be my freaking wingman. I love that. He says that so many times in the movie because he wants Tom to understand that I've worked too hard and come too far to just be singled out as some black man who needs rescuing or saving. I am so much more than that. And we even see that in smaller moments, like when we have the newspaper and reporter try to single him out, take a picture of him. This is this one black exception. No, I don't want to be that. If I'm the best, I just need to be the best. There's no need for you to play on my intentions or my race or whatever for this article. I'm an inspiration just because of who I am. And we see that popping even on the ship when we have the men who are on the lower level of the deck. He is just such a strong inspiration. I love the moment where we really don't have them say a whole lot. In fact, all of the characters that are surrounding maybe pretty much Daisy, Jesse, and Tom, they aren't the strongest of characters, but we really get to see just how much he means just off of them coming together and buying him a watch. Like, that was so nice. There's really some endearing scenes in this movie that are really moving. Even when we have that brief moment with Daisy when they are preparing to go off and enter the war, and it's just like, tell me that you will be there for him. Once he, steps foot out here, I can no longer protect him. Can you be that for my husband? Like, oh, mind you, she did not say return my husband and get good health, save his life. Just, I need you to be there for my husband. At which, of course, we have Tom internalizing this the entirety of the film. He feels like being there and supporting him in the best way would be saving his life. I need to say, like, no, I just need you to be there for my husband. Once we get into the end and we have Jesse and the crew pop out to save the same haters who are on the ground floor running in the Korean War, I just love the whole dynamics of all of this adversity, all of the disdain that they have for him. Meanwhile, I am the person above shooting people down who are getting the best of you. We are all working towards the same goal, but just because I look different, you gonna be a hateration, holleration in this dancery? I'm a face. But the movie absolutely takes a shift. Once we have his plane be hit and you just, oh God, you just see him embracing for impact, and you see Tom just really fighting, like, drop this part. We are pretty much preparing to like land crash this plane, but he's also anticipating dying. I think that's what got me the most in this film, between him or even Tom or his wife Daisy, just that acceptance of anything could happen to me at any moment and I just won't be here. So just being so prepared for that, it was just absolutely scary. And we feel that via Tom in the excellent acting that we were getting from Glen Powell. Like, he wanted so badly to save him. Once we have him realize that I can't fly out of here, I have to prepare for impact and hit the ground. He's in enemy territory. Not only can we not go back and rescue him, but he's just left, I was like, oh, y'all just gonna leave him there? But when we have Tom just go against the grain and we see just how devoted he is and how important he is to him, that he is willing to disobey orders for the first time in the movie to go down here and try to save Jesse. It is such an endearing scene. Like, oh man, I wanted him to get him out of there so bad. Low key jeopardized our whole freaking life, injured ourselves. We see the bodily injury that he has on himself, when he returns, but he jeopardized everything. Like, I'm not leaving you out here. I can't. Trying to like physically pry him out of there. The conversation, the joking, the strong, him dying with such honor. Not like, I had to shed some tears. I absolutely had to share some tears, even when we have the fellow, pilot friend who goes against the grain also to go out there and rescue them. People were really gunning and fighting for him because they knew what he meant and the kind of man that he was. And the fact that we could not save him was just truly, truly hurtful. The fact that we had to leave his body there, we couldn't they were behind whole enemy lines. He went to back for him. Like, I'm not leaving you here. But we ended up having to, and he just can't even live with himself. He is just so tormented. Even down to the fact that we weren't able to go and retrieve his body. He is treated, oh, you're behind enemy lines. Not only can we not retrieve your body, but we need to blow up the plane that landed down there and disintegrate all of that, including your remains. Like, you just get this deep-rooted feeling of not having any closure. To not be able to give him a proper burial was just trash. Then we have Daisy. Like, when we have the scene of Daisy receiving the letter, of course, of his passing, you just get this deep, man, you just wanted so much more for their family, for their dynamic. Like, you wanted them to go on. But what saves this movie, even though it is heartbreaking, is the strength that you get from Daisy. When we have Tom being awarded the Medal of Honor and he can't even really accept it because he doesn't feel like I have anything to be honorable about. I am a failure. I failed so many people. I failed, most of all, I failed Daisy, a woman who I made a promise to in her face that I would save her husband. When she gives him that confirmation of, I never wanted you to do that. That is not what I meant. And he lets her know that I was there with him until the end. That's what I wanted. I didn't want you to leave him out there alone. Like, just imagine if he would have been right there on, that cold ground and just died alone. Like, that would have been absolutely terrible. The fact that you stuck by his side, the fact that you heard his last words, tell Daisy I love her. It's like, oh, that's all I could have asked for. You did what I needed you to do, and you have, nothing to be ashamed of or feel like a failure. Oh, like, when he started crying, I was like, that's enough crying movie. But even when we get into the ending and we find out, of course, we have those closing remarks from that wonderful letter, and we have Tom pretty much in his memory, you know, flying over the family, over the beach. I was like, Maki Dada. I loved all of it. But when I saw that, till this day, even with Tom passing, or even Daisy, they still were not able to recover his remains, and he kind of went out still fighting and trying to do that, or just being an advocate for Jesse, and Jesse being awarded, and just going on in his memory, just ringing true for so many others that he inspired. Like, it was just everything. And then you see their two children, you see Tom's son, and you see Jesse's daughter, they're friends. Like, it was very, very Kodak. Oh man. I really enjoyed my time with this movie. I really hate the fact that it, you know, went unappreciated, and it underperformed, because it does have something to offer, and it is one of Jonathan Majors' like best performances. And it's really informative, especially if you don't know anything about Jesse Brown like myself. It just makes me long for more movies like this. I hate that it didn't perform, because then that tells, you know, the higher ups, oh, nobody went to see that. Nobody wants to, you know, support a movie like that. But just a movie of so many firsts, so many inspirational people that we maybe, you know, didn't learn about in history class, or just moving forward. There are so many movies and so many, you know, possibilities of things to be made outside of giving us repeat offender movies like, you know, Harriet Tubman and them, you know, well, MLK and them. We got enough of those, you know. Love you, but we got enough of those. There's so many stories that haven't had any light shed on them. This was one of them. Go support it. Go watch it. Well, you guys, that was my review for Devotion. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop down and tell me what you thought about this film. Have you seen it? Did you go back and watch it? Because you know, I'm always for that. You can go watch it and then come back. Video ain't going nowhere. I look forward to reading you guys' comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to support me by liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time for my next video.